Strange Shadows, a Clark Ashton Smith podcast.
Not as the plants and flowers of earth, growing peacefully beneath a simple sun, with the blossoms of the planet up high. Coiling and uncoiling in double dawns, tossing tumultuously under vast suns of jade green and Balas ruby orange, swaying and weltering in rich twilights, in aurora curtain nights, they resembled fields of rooted serpents that dance eternally to an otherworldly music. Many were small and furtive, and crept viper-wise on the ground. Others were tall as pythons, rearing superbly in hieratic postures to the jeweled light. Some grew with single or dual stems that burgeoned forth into hydra heads, and some were frilled and festooned with leaves that suggested the wings of flying lizards, the pennants of fairy lancers, the phylacteries of a strange sacerdotalism. Some appeared to bear the scarlet wattles of dragons. Others were tongued as if with black flames or the coloured vapours that issue with weird writhings from out barbaric senses. And others still were armed with fleshy nets or tendrils, or with huge blossoms like a buckler's perforated in battle. And all were equipped with venomous darts and fangs. All were alive, restless, and sentient.
Welcome, friends, and thanks for joining us on Season 3, Episode 8 of the Clark Ashton Smith podcast, Strange Shadows. The voice you just heard was author Gavin Chappell reading the opening paragraph of today's story. I am one of your hosts, Rob Poyton.
And I'm the other one, Tim Mendes. Yeah, today we're back into quintessentially purple prose Smith territory here, aren't we? After last time when it was kind of stripped back, we're back into flowery mode, which is fitting considering the story we're covering today is Demon of the Flower.
Yes, absolutely. It's Technicolor Smith, isn't it? This it's so rich and vivid. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. And of course, that means that we have, I'd say, more words than usual for favourite words. So perhaps we'll just select a few of them. And I know some of these we've covered before. So, but there were one or two new ones, and one specifically that I had to look up.
Indeed, yeah. There was one I've actually struggled to find as well, which is cockadrills. Did you look that one in?
I think I know that one from before. Is it like a cockatrice kind of?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I've got.
I should have looked that up.
Well, this is the problem. I did look it up, but it's not coming up. It just kept redirecting me to crocodiles. So it's like, no, not bloody crocodiles. So there you go. That one remains a bit of a mystery to me, to be honest. But I think the first one would be phylacteries.
Yes.
Which is a small leather box containing Hebrew text on vellum. It's the little thing that they have on the belts.
Yes, they're worn and carried, aren't they, by Orthodox Jewish people, I believe. Yeah. My first pick is a Balas ruby. Now, obviously, we all know what a ruby is. A Balas ruby is pale rose in colour, and the name comes from the region Balaskia, which used to be known as Badakhshan. I believe it's in northeast Afghanistan. Marco Polo mentioned it. It was a sort of big trading centre. The Silk Road went right through it. And among the many minerals and jewels that were mined there were rubies, or, well, I believe spinels is the actual proper name. But basically, pale rose ruby. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah. My next one will be adorst, which is one of those words that I've seen a few times and I've kind of inferred what it is, but I didn't know the full definition. It's basically placed back to back.
Yeah, that was the one I had to look up. Yeah, it's used in heraldry, I think, when you have the two
it is, yeah,
unicorns or whatever. And I suppose thinking about it, you think dorsal, don't you? So yeah, you can
Indeed,
see.
yeah.
But I wouldn't have worked that out without looking. Now, my next one is a favourite. I think we've probably mentioned this before. In fact, I'm sure we have, but I'm going to say it anyway. Turgescent. Oh,
Nice, yeah.
swollen.
Yeah, yeah, we have had that one before. So we were talking about turgescent grave worms, and
Yes.
I remember.
Right.
Yeah. Now my next one will be hieratic, which I think we've had before, which is the cursive writing system that was used in ancient Egypt.
Volute is another one we have mentioned before as well. That's the spiral designs on top of Greek columns. Volute, very nice sounding word.
Yeah, another one is we've had sacerdotal before, but this time it's slightly different. We've got sacerdotalism, which it means literally the one who presents sacred offerings, and usually refers to priests because in that the context, priests are considered messengers.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there you go.
And my last one, well, it's actually my last two. I thought I'd put these two together. They're both similar in some respects. And it's obvious what they mean, but I'd never heard them. I'd never heard these words before or this phrase used this way. Serpentining and salamanderine. So obviously moving like a serpent and looking like a salamander.
Nice.
That's a bit like me on the dance floor, actually.
Yeah.
Move like a serpent, look like a salamander.
That's like a lyric from some 70s glam rock song, isn't it? Really? And then you'll do the funky alligator. Yeah, my last one is tutelary, which means protector, guardian, or patron. There we go. But before we move on, right, I usually do this bit at the end. I've looked in an issue of Astounding Stories after the publication to see if there was any reader comments about Smith's story. And I'm just going to drop this one here because it just fits here really nicely, because it's like the reader in question has done what we've just done. Clark Ashton Smith writes a peculiar story. You should have run footnotes on a half a dozen or so of those words: hieratic, phylacteries, sacerdotalism, tutelary, avatar, adorsed. Quite astounding indeed. The Demon of the Flower is astounding in more ways than one. I can picture a weird plant kingdom ruling a strange planet. I like the idea, but the ending was a little bit fantastic. There we go.
Wow. Excellent.
So I basically picked out everything we said. Well, obviously, he didn't know Avatar. That's the only real difference.
Yeah. Isn't that great, though? And doesn't that go against the grain of this idea that, oh, your stuff is too highbrow, too highfalutin for our readers?
Yeah.
I mean,
which is something we're going to get to in a minute.
Well, I can just, without knowing, I'm already sensing, the rejection letter coming back from Farnsworth and Co. Well, let's get into that. Let's get into the publication history.
Yeah, the story was completed on October the 17th, 1931, and is an expansion on his poem The Flower Devil, and also contains elements of The Hashish Eater. Those both appeared in Ebony and Crystal. He first submitted it to Harry Bates at Strange Tales. Now, August Derleth wrote in a letter dated 26th of October 1931, I found it very colourful, got a strong impression of colour movement due to your vivid descriptive phrases and sentences. I don't think Bates will take this, however, as good as it is. There's not enough action. Still, he took the daughter Saturn, but this latter was more whimsical, not so. And it's strange because Bates surprised them both by tentatively accepting it. He said, yeah, I like it. I think we'll take it. Right. Unfortunately, the publisher, William Clayton, vetoed it for not having enough action. So in the end, Derleth turned out to be quite prophetic there. Which, he then subbed it to Weird Tales, where
Farnsworth said no.
Yes, again, and because of the language, right. Basically, it was too much for his readership. I've got a feeling Mr. Lovecraft might have had something to say about that, but we can get onto that later. And it was rejected again, and he considered putting it in a pamphlet of stories that he was putting together for the Auburn Journal. This eventually became The Double Shadow and Other Stories. But while he was thinking about doing it, he managed to land it in Astounding Stories. When F. Orlin Tremaine took over the publication, Clark Ashton Smith fired over several stories, and Demon was accepted for the December 1933 issue, and that's where it was published. Right. Interestingly, looking through the letters in Astounding Stories, when he took over, because before that it had been primarily science fiction or science fiction, but he'd introduced an element of the weird into it. And if you look in the letters, the people are split. You've got some people going, "Oh, this is brilliant. We've got more variety in the stories. Love these weird, wonderful, wacky landscapes." And then you've got the hyperdrive brigade, as I like to call them, going, "I don't find that scientifically impossible enough. You should be focusing more on real-world scientific principles." You know,
isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
isn't that interesting? Yeah, because there's that hard sci-fi element, as you say. They want to know how the warp drive works and all that sort of thing. And Smith's science fiction, as we've said, is almost more sort of Jules Verne, isn't it?
Yes.
Arthur C. Clarke. I don't know if that's a fair comparison, to be honest. That's just the first name that came into my head for hard sci-fi. It's not speculative science fiction, is it?
No.
And it's more just using sci-fi as a setting.
Yeah. Which is interesting because one of the people who waded into this argument was actually Donald Wandry.
Oh, really?
Who was basically saying, if we do that, every story is going to be the same. What's the point in having fantastical worlds if you're not going to have fantastical imagery in them? Blah 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 blah. Basically saying exactly that. You know.
Yeah, it's kind of science versus art, isn't it? In a sense, really. If you want to read something scientific, then you read a scientific journal.
That's basically what he said. He said, if you want like factual, real world science, you're better off reading Scientific American.
Yeah.
You know, or the other journals, right?
Well, the name of the magazine is Astounding. It's not sci-fi. It's not science, speculative science or anything like that. It's Astounding Stories, isn't it? So
yeah,
or Weird Tales, or whatever.
Yeah.
I suppose it's interesting that there were these fault lines in fandom even back then, and maybe even before that.
Oh, yeah.
With someone complaining that Bram Stoker wasn't gothic enough or something, he didn't have any ghosts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not enough chain rattling. It's funny. The more things change, the more they stay the same, isn't it? It's yeah.
I want to see more monks. There's no monks.
You could just imagine them on it. Like if there was Twitter back then, they would be arguing on it, wouldn't there? There'd be a flame.
Yeah, and you mentioned those two poems there, The Flower Devil and The Hashish Eater. We're going to look at doing readings of those at some point in the near future. We'll put those out as an episode. But I just wanted to read this extract from The Hashish Eater because I think you see perfectly the roots of the demon of the flower here. This is from the Steve Berens Clark Ashton Smith book. So this is from The Hashish Eater. In some Antarian world I see the sacred flower with lips of purple flesh and silver-lashed vermilion-lidded eyes of torpid azure, whom his furtive priests at moonless eve in terror seek to slay with bubbling growls of sacrificial blood that hide a hueless poison.
Nice, yeah.
So that's obviously exactly what happens in the story here. So you can see he took that seed of an idea.
Oh, here we go. We got gardening puns today.
and let it blossom in this story.
Oh, for goodness sake. Nice.
Oh dear.
Oh, you're such a sap.
Oh, very good. I'll leave it there.
Oh God.
So before everyone switches off, let's get into the story. I'd like to say that there were dozens of messages coming in support of my puns, but that is not the case. So
oh no, you have had a few though. Tobias Nielsen. He always appreciates your dodgy puns. So there you go.
Thank you, sir. You're a man of exquisite taste. There you go. So, yeah, as we see from our introductory paragraph, we're on another planet. We're on the planet Lo-Fi. Now, the first thing I thought, and having said I'm going to stop straight away, I'm going to start again. I wondered if, like Lo-Fi, people couldn't hear very well, as opposed to the planet Hi-Fi, where they've got.
Oh, for goodness sake! Oh, you're on form today, aren't you?
I'm going to stop there. I promise.
Yeah, well, where you stop is where I'm going to start, because I went straight away into carry-on territory. Yeah, tossing tumultuously. Oh, you filthy beast!
And isn't straight away in this opening it's just so colourful and vivid. Jade green, Balas ruby, orange, rich twilights. And I like this movement as well. There's a lot of movement in this one. There's no like chase scenes or fast moving kind of thing, but this fields of rooted servants that dance eternally to an otherworldly music. The impression of all these plants swaying and sort of twisting and turning it to some unknown rhythm.
Yeah, and creeping in the fashion of vipers on the low ground and things like that. Yeah, you get that feel. It's like when you go to walk through a field on a summer's day and there's a gentle breeze and it's all moving and you see almost like waves, don't you, going across like the grass?
Yeah,
that kind of thing. And it's a wonderfully evocative sight, and Smith manages to capture it really nicely with some of his. I mean, like I said, this is quintessential Smith language play here, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's poetry coming right to the fore again.
Yeah. So you've got that colour, you've got that movement, and then he ties in this sort of animal element as well. And again, this is something we've noted with Smith's aliens. It's not animal, vegetable, or mineral. They're often all three. In fact, we kind of have all three in this story.
Yeah.
So we get the leaves that suggest the wings of flying lizards. There's a band name. Anyone might remember that from the
They're a great
70s.
band.
Yes.
They were a great band. Money, what a tune.
That's what I want.
I've got all their albums.
So, yeah, we've got the flying lizards, we've got flaming tongues, we've got scarlet wattles as of wild dragons, and we've got the reticulations as of fleshy nets. So, although they're plants, there's this very concrete sense of them as well. We've got an element of quite reptilian animals.
Yes.
But also scowls and bucklers and daggers. So they're not they're not pretty, are they? They're colourful, but they're not pretty.
No, but that to me, it does give you that sort of indication. You know, the more sort of spiky looking, for want of a better word, lizards that you get. They're these beautiful rainbow colours, but you wouldn't want to run your hand over it because they got the like jagged like ruffs and things like that. And you know, I'm trying to think of a good example, but some iguanas, I suppose, and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And is it the case, again, here's where my general knowledge fails, that the brighter coloured some of those plants are, or even insects or sea creatures, that usually denotes that they're poisonous as well?
Yes.
Poison seems to bring that vivid colour with it.
It does. Well, look at poison dart frogs. They're these beautifully vibrant colours, reds and blues and yellows. And yeah.
And more than that, because it's not just poison, they're armed with venomous darts, deadly fangs, and many possess the power of fatal constriction. So I feel like there's a lot of serpentine imagery in this story as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definite tend towards the Ophidian.
And then we learn that it's actually the plants in charge on this planet. They're the dominant life form. And the dominant life form above all the plants is the Vorqual.
I love that name. It does sound like a race from 60s Doctor Who, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I am the leader of the Vorqual.
It's a very Smithian name, isn't it, as well? It's very sort of typical.
Yeah. More ancient than the twin suns, apparently.
This is a plant, but it's more than a plant, because the plant is an avatar of a demon. So it's does that mean it's kind of possessed? It's not actually sort of possessed by the demon as such, but it's an aspect of the demon, I guess.
Yeah. In
a way that Nyarlathotep has avatars of the Faceless One or the Man in the Woods and all that.
Nephrenkar. Yeah.
And we get a detailed description of this plant and also its surroundings, because this isn't sort of a plant in the middle of the forest or anything like that. This lives in the heart of the chief city, Lospar, in an equatorial realm. It had grown from antiquity on the summit of a high pyramid of sable terraces that overloomed the town like the hanging gardens of some greater Babylon, crowded with the lesser but deadly floral forms. So people are living in conjunction with these plants and with the Vorqual, but they actually worship it. It's served by a human priesthood.
It's interesting because it does remind me of, it has aspects of like a great old one or something, doesn't it? Almost, this flower, it's obviously come down from somewhere. People worship it as a god. It's from outside or beyond or just over there, Nobody seems to know quite where or when it came.
And it's definitely a sentient being, because later on we know that it's telepathic. It's got telepathic powers.
Yeah.
It doesn't really detail what they get for worshipping it, does it? Well, we get obviously their sacrifice involved, and that's how it's fed. But I don't know what other powers it has. Well, I guess we find out one of those powers later on.
Indeed. I like the fact that it's almost like it's been potted quite nicely, because it's in a basin that's level with surrounded platform with black mineral, and it's filled with a compost in which the dust of royal mummies formed an essential ingredient.
Isn't that wonderful?
I
the
know.
Dust of royal mummies. That's so Smith as well, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's not. It's in this great big black plant pot, basically filled with the dust of mummies. But that's so gothic, right?
It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. It is. Yeah, and the priesthood are all drawn from the aristocracy of Lo-Fi, right, as well. So this is a highly exalted. I mean, how exalted must it be if basically you're using the dead kings and queens as compost?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's quite a thing, isn't it?
It is.
And we get this lovely description. The tall demonian flower sprang from a bulb so old, so encrusted with the growth of centuries, that it resembled an urn of stone. Above this there rose the gnarled and mighty stalk, there displayed in earlier times the bifurcation of a mandrake, but whose halves had now grown together into a scaly furrowed thing, like the tail of some mythic sea monster. The stalk was variegated with hues of greening bronze, of antique copper, with the sere yellows and burnt madders of tropic autumn, the livid blues and deathly purples of carnal corruption. It ended in a crown of stiff blackish leaves, banded and spotted with poisonous metallic whites and edged with sharp serrations as of savage weapons. So that's quite a thing, isn't it, to behold?
Oh, yeah.
Just the colours. We don't really get a sense of the size of it so much, but in my mind, it's probably about 12 foot tall.
That's how I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it as pretty big, especially with its age. These things just keep growing, right? So that's going to be one hell of a triffid sitting there. And I'd just like to bring you back here because I spotted the name of a black metal band.
Oh, God.
It's got no, death metal, I reckon. Carnal Corruption.
Oh, yes.
That's a death metal band, isn't it, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Playing with Carcass and people like that.
And it has this sort of long, sinuous arm serpentining downward and outward to terminate in the huge upright bowl of a bizarre blossom, as if the arm in sardonic fashion should hold out a hellish beggar's cup. So it has this sort of bowl. This is where the blood goes, right, for the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. You've got the mummy dust going in the roots, but then it's fed through this almost like a mouth, I suppose. That's where the blood goes. So it's an interesting way for a plant to feed.
Reminds me of some of the carnivorous plants, like the pitcher plants and things like that, which have their big open tops and they entice the insects in and then they basically liquidize them, suck the nutrient out of them.
Yeah.
I guess that cup acts almost like that.
Yeah, because once they're in, it's too steep to get out. The sides are slippery, that kind of thing for those. And isn't it interesting? I just thought about this actually. When we look at Smithian aliens, they tend to be sometimes insectoid or beetle-like, but most often plant-like.
Yeah.
when we look at Lovecraft, you think things that live deep under the sea. They have
or fungal
tentacles and feelers. Yeah, or your fungal stuff. So it's interesting how they went for different branches.
It is. It is. Yeah.
And the Vorqual is swaying slowly in a weird, lethal, hypnotic rhythm with a deep and solemn sibilation. It dominates the city of Lospar and the world, Lo-Fi. So that implies, again, with this these telepathic powers, perhaps it exerts a very wide influence over the population, planet-wide, in fact.
Get a striking image here, because he says, below on the tiers of the pyramid, the thronged Ophidian plants kept time to this rhythm in their tossing and hissing. So you've got these serpentine, snaky plants sort of all, writhing along with this melody. That's an incredibly powerful image, isn't it?
It is, and it is so creepy, isn't it? Yeah. Now, we mentioned sacrifice because, of course, it wouldn't be a Smith story if there wasn't some form of sacrifice or something going on. And this falls to Lunithi, king of the realms about Lospar, and the high priest. And I like this. He was the last, if not the first of his race, to rebel against this singular and sinister domination. So we kind of get an inkling already that this isn't going to end well for Lunithi.
Yeah.
It's the first one to rebel and also the last. But then we do get this little bit of world building. Again, typical Smithian world building. There were doubtful myths of some primordial ruler who had dared to refuse the required sacrifice and whose people, in consequence, had been decimated by a mortal war with the serpentine plants, which, obeying the angry demon, had uprooted themselves everywhere from the soil and had marched on the cities of Lo-Fi, slaying or vampirizing all who fell in their way. So that lovely image of a kind of...
Day of the Triffids, isn't it?
Day of the Triffids, yeah. I was thinking like your Fangorn Forest, your Ents.
Yeah.
But instead of, cheery old tree beard, you've got mad vampire plants.
I love it. I think that, again, it's such a striking image, especially as the descriptions has them almost snaky, snake-like. And just, it's a really creepy image, these plants sort of shambling along,
And the fact that they can actually move but choose not to, but it's the Vorqual that actually gets them moving, kind of thing, is that's interesting as well. And of course, this was when was Triffids written? 50s? John Wyndham would have been sort of 1950s, I guess, wouldn't it?
Yeah, 1951.
So then that leads us to speculate how much Clark Ashton Smith John Wyndham had read, perhaps. So yeah, that's an interesting thought,
isn't it?
I'm gonna look into that, John Wyndham, to see where he got his inspiration for Day of the Triffids. I mean, I'm sure there are other things as well that they could have been from.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know, because I mean, a lot of his stuff does fall into weird fiction anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And midwich cuckoos and all that kind of stuff, right? It's incredibly strange and really creepy stuff. I'm a big fan of Wyndham's.
So the reason for Lunithi's rebellion is the fact that his betrothed, Nala, has been chosen to be the next sacrifice, and he's not too happy about this.
No. And I like this here. There's a great description that it's almost like she's under some kind of spell, isn't it? Because that she's sort of resigned to it. Nala, dazed and resigned in a mystic inertia of despair, accepted her doom without question. But a blasphemous doubt formed itself surreptitiously in the mind of the king. Scarcely he dared admit the thought to full consciousness, lest the demon should know by means of its telepathic powers and visit him some baleful retribution.
Now, isn't that interesting that we were just talking about the midwich cuckoos?
Indeed.
Think of a brick wall.
Yeah.
And again, we've got that same idea here. So again, there's another possible influence for Wyndham. I mean, I'm sure it's common in some other stories as well, but that I've got to keep my mind blank. Can't let the thing know that I'm planning to kill it. So again, it speaks to something of the power of Vorqual as well.
Yeah, I love that, how that trope's used in things. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's from. I think it might be Doctor Who. It's probably Doctor Who. But there's a bit where they're trying to keep the thing out of their head, so they just recite utter nonsense, just talk gibberish to keep the thing out of their heads.
Yeah, that's always an interesting one, that, isn't it? I'm
Mm.
sure Star Trek did it as well.
Yeah, it must have
I'm
done.
sure
It
it
may
was
have
on
been
there.
Star Trek, maybe Doctor Who. It was one of them old sci-fi shows, right?
Yeah, yeah. So he's got to try and devise a way to destroy the Vorqual, and he's not really sure how to go about this because the thing is believed to be deathless and invulnerable. But then an old myth springs to mind, and this is a tale about the existence of a neutral and independent being known as the Oclith, a demon coeval with the Vorqual and allied neither to man nor to the flower creatures. This being was said to dwell
Mm.
beyond the desert of Aphom in the otherwise unpeopled mountains of white stone that are never visited by snow. So this is why I said we've got this animal, vegetable, mineral. We've got the flowers. We've got the animal in terms of the humans, and then we've got this other demon, which turns out to be sort of a mineral form, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's supposed to be immortal and lived apart and alone, meditating upon all things and interfering never with their processes. And yeah, it is kind of like a mineral or rock or ore, even.
Yeah. So then we get the King's journey to see this thing across the trackless wastes. And again, there's a lots of lovely, vivid description here. I particularly like the fact that we have a green sun. That was a good thing. And there's a double dawn. Have we got the twin suns again as well? We had that recently, which gives me a headache trying to work out where shadows will be and stuff. It's incredibly.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I remember we
Yeah.
had a discussion about that, didn't we? Yeah. Well, that thing with like having the green sun and the twin green suns over a desert and things like that. That's incredibly 1980s music video,
Yeah, yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
You know, you'd expect like flashes of aha or something coming in the background.
So at the setting of the first sun, Lunithi came within sight of the Pale Mountains beyond Afom, towering like a precipice of frozen foam above the desert's darker sea. Lovely imagery again. They were tinged with evanescent lights of azure and jade and orange in the going of the yellow-red orb and the westward slanting of its binary. Then the lights melted into tourmaline and beryl, and the green sun was regnant over all, till it too went down, leaving a twilight whose colours were those of shoaling sea water. So incredibly vivid again.
Yeah, you can see why Derleth latched on that, saying your colours and stuff was absolutely brilliant. Because
It is. It's I mean, how many ways can you say it? Basically, you're looking at red, green, yellow, and you might think, oh, azure, yeah, but he goes beyond that every
yeah,
time.
the colour of shoaling seawater,
Yeah, yeah,
it's very specific, but also very descriptive.
yes. And we get this little detail here that I liked. Lunithi, like all of his race, was able to exist for prolonged periods without other nutriment than sunlight and water. He had brought with him a metal flask filled with the aqueous element of lo-fi, from which he drank sparingly. Again, this is an interesting bit of world building because this is a planet ruled by plants. So if you had human type creatures or beings living there, are they going to be growing wheat? Are they going to be killing vegetables to eat them?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the fact they're dependent on this plant because it's the waters from the plants, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
The aqueous element that the plants also live on.
yeah.
So you guess there's like, do they have like water rations? It makes you think, doesn't it?
It does, and then thinking even beyond that, how would they eat meat? Because if you're raising livestock, what does livestock feed on? Plants. So it's a very interesting sort of natural balance question. How would this balance out in real life kind of thing? And there is liquid up in these mountains. Well, he comes to a sort of chasm. There's liquid there, but it's pools of unknown fluids upon which he came at intervals in the gloom. There were sanguine-coloured springs that bubbled from the walls to vanish in fathomless rifts, and sluggish brooklets of mercurial metal, green, blue, or amber, that wound beside him like liquescent serpents, and then disappeared mysteriously in dark caverns. And we get this sort of acrid metallic vapours rising up as well. It sounds like sort of almost like a post-industrial polluted wasteland, isn't it?
It does. It reminds me of those, like, up north you get a lot of, or you used to, although most of them have been redeveloped now, but when I was a kid, there was a lot of like abandoned factories and lots of rusting metal. So after a heavy downpour, you used to get those like red rivers and things in the car parks and like pooling in potholes and things. This really sort of like muddy, this brown, reddy, almost like blood, right? Yeah. So again, it is a very striking image.
So then that leads you to wonder: is this the result of some apocalypse, or was there another civilization? Again, Smith is so good at this, just giving you a couple of lines, and you can spin off all this world history or speculation just from that.
Well, it's like the pyramid. When was that built? Who built it? Did the men who live there now, or somebody that came before and was eaten by the plants? There you go.
So he eventually emerges into a huge crater-like pit that was the home of the Oclith. Endorsed against the further wall, Lunithi beheld that fabulous being, which had the likeness of a high cruciform pillar of blue mineral shining with its own esoteric luster. Going forward, he prostrated himself before the pillar, and then, in accents that quavered with a deep awe, he ventured to ask the desired oracle.
I love the fact that the Oclith basically ignores him until it can be bothered. For a while, the Oclith maintained its Aeonian silence. Peering timidly, the king perceived the twin lights of mystic silver that brightened and faded with a slow, regular pulsation in the arms of the blue cross. Then, from the lofty, shining thing, by means of no visible organ, there issued a voice that was like the tinkling of mineral fragments, lightly clashed together, but which somehow shaped itself into articulate words. Again, I can hear it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. And I'm getting quite a Star Trek vibe off of that as well. I'm sure there are examples in the original series of it's the thing, the voice comes out. There's that particular voice. People of Earth, you shall listen to me, and that's ooh,
yes
in the background.
That trilling, yeah. It's used a lot in all them old sci-fi shows. So this is kind of reminds me of the Doctor Who serial, The Stones of Blood, which, surprise, surprise, there's living stones that basically go around. It's a stone circle. People go up to investigate it because there's more stones than there should be, and then the stones come to life and eat them, basically.
Right.
And but in that you've got these two like celestial beings called Megara, and they talk with that twinkling
noise in the background. Just because it does give it a nice edge, doesn't it? Was that the one that was filmed at the Rollright Stones?
That's the one, yes.
Right.
That's precisely it, yeah.
Right. If you want to find out more about the Rollright Stones, check out my Innsmouth excursion there last year. I'll put the link up to that in the show notes below. Very interesting place. Very interesting. So the Oclith, it's, I guess in D&D alignment terms, this is true neutral, this being, right? Because he drops the information. It says... it's not necessarily immortal, this elder demon, for all things have their proper terms of existence and decay, and nothing has been created without its corresponding agency of death. I do not advise you to slay the plant, but I can tell you how to do it. So it's not giving any sort of advice, it's just keeping everything purely factual.
Yeah, I like this Oclith character because it's just the epitome of indifference, isn't it? It's happy up there in its mountain. Don't bother me, I won't bother you. This kind of like eternal hermit kind of character.
It is, yeah. I suppose it is that trope in a sense, isn't it? He climbs up into the mountains, into the cave to speak to the mystic. He says, "Oh, you can if you think you can."
Yeah, that's the one.
Is that it?
Yeah.
3 weeks it's taken me to get here.
Yeah, you'd feel a bit cheated, wouldn't you? Yeah.
But to be fair, the Oclith does give him something more practical. It tells him about there's a hueless spring of mineral poison. Hueless was the word, funnily enough, used in the Hashish Eater. A hueless spring of mineral poison, deadly to all the Ophidian plant life of this world. So he tells him where this poison is, how he can get it, how he can prepare and administer it. And then says, I've answered your question. If there is anything more that you wish to learn, it would be well to ask me now. And then it's almost like the computer sort of shuts off then, isn't it? You can see the little light goes out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. I'm done. I'm going back to sleep. Yeah.
So the king returns home in fearful hope and trepidation, dreading the miscarriage of his plan, and shrinking still from its audacious impiety. Lunathai awaited the night preceding that double dawn of summer solstice when, in a secret room of the Black Pyramid, the monstrous offering was to be prepared. So this is quite a mental strain, isn't it? You've got to plan this thing, but you've got to keep it from your sort of uppermost thoughts.
Yeah. And all this time, the preparations are going on, aren't they? It's, because she's going to be slain by a fellow priest or priestess. So you have that element as well. It's not the plants doing any of the killing.
Yeah.
It's like, you're going to kill her.
And then bring it to me. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
True, yeah. With infinite caution, hiding his real intention in the nethermost crypts of his mind, he made the preparations prescribed by the Oclith. Into the huge sacrificial cup of black metal, in a room eternally lit with stored sunlight, he emptied the seething sibilant poison he had brought with him from the White Mountains. Then, opening with surgical adroitness a vein in one of his arms, he added a certain amount of his own life fluid to the lethal potion. So there's always blood involved, isn't there, in anything? And I just caught that as well. Rooms eternally lit with stored sunlight. That's an interesting little technological detail there.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and there's a lovely bit here when he mixes his blood into the hissing liquid because it quiets the angry venom, above whose foaming crystal it floated like a magic oil, without mingling, so that the entire cup, to all appearance, was filled with the liquid most acceptable to the satanic blossom. So it's basically like one of those shooters that you get where the liquids have got different gravities, so they separate, like a B-52 and things like that.
And I thought Satanic Blossoms is Satanic Blossoms could be a band name or an album.
Indeed.
I think that could be an album name, I think. Bearing in his hands the black growl, Lunithi mounted a coiling stairway that led to the Vorqual's presence. And I like even the stairway is coiling like a snake. Everything is serpentine in this. In a luminous azure gloom against the weird and iridescent streamers of light that foreran the double dawn, he saw the dreamy swaying of the monstrous plant and heard its somnolent hissing that was answered drowsily by innumerable blossoms on the terraces below. So again, that idea of everything on the planet is swaying to the rhythm of Vorqual. And he manages to do this, right? He manages to get up, the great flower cup comes down and he pours in the poison, the blood-mantled poison. The venom boiled and hissed like a wizard's brew as the thirsty flower drank it up. And Lunithi saw the coiling arm draw back in sudden doubt and tilt its demonian growl quickly, as if to repudiate the sacrificial draught.
Yeah, it was too late. It's because it says here, so I'm kind of right thinking about those plants, the carnivorous plants, because it says the poison has been absorbed by the blossom's porous lining.
Ah, right. So it's taken in.
So it's taken in through the
through the skin, so to speak, or whatever the botanical term is.
Yeah, neither of us are botanists, so yeah,
or physicists, or mathematicians, or historians. What do we do?
I know, right? We're both musicians, aren't we? There you go. That's why we have no clue about anything else.
And we could write stories about ghouls.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
We do have some uses. And then you get this lovely thing as well. Well, it's not lovely, it's quite disturbing. Its deep, solemn hissing sharpened to an insupportable note, fraught with the pain of a dying devil. And looking down from the platform edge on which he crouched to avoid the swaying growth, Lunithi saw that the lesser plants on all the black terraces beneath were tossing in mad unison with their master. Like noises in an evil dream, he heard the chorus of their tortured sibilations. So they're sharing in Vorqual's death agonies.
Yeah.
And then it all suddenly goes silent.
Quite a strange thing now, because he turns in mingled horror and triumph. It's that thing, isn't it? He's done something so, unthinkable, so drastic. Yeah.
so outrageous and blasphemous, and yeah. And you know, I think we just have to mention the words flaccid stalk, because
Yes, I'm glad I was
we
going
are
to.
who we are.
Yeah, I had to stop myself from doing an own matron earlier at the, what was it, tossing again. It was a.
Yeah. And the Vorkwal appears to collapse and crumble before his eyes. The entire stem, with its evil colours fading swiftly, shrank and fell in upon itself like a sere and empty serpent skin. So even in death, you've still got that Ophidian aspect.
And I love this next passage. At the same time, in some obscure manner, Lunathai was still aware of a presence that brooded above the pyramid. Even in the death of the Vorkwai, it seemed to him that he was not alone. Then, as he stood and waited, fearing he knew not what, he felt the passing of a cold and unseen thing in the azure gloom, a thing that flowed across his body like the coils of some enormous python. It's that moment in the horror movie, isn't it? Where you just get the shadow.
Yes.
You know, moonlit night, the shadow goes across somebody's back or something. It's that moment.
The candles flicker,
yeah,
you know, sort of thing. There's a presence, there's an unseen presence, but it's very much felt.
Yeah.
Because of course, as I suppose we know, the plant is the plant and the demon is the demon. And although he's killed the plant, as we find out, he's not actually killed the demon. The demon's going to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, I definitely do get some Nyarlathotep vibes from this.
Yeah.
And especially as well as this, you know, the big winged thing. It's almost like the Haunter of the Dark avatar, isn't it? And you know, it's very, very similar.
Yeah. So it's kind of still feeling quite apprehensive and nervous, and it has a bit. There's sort of it's described as a weird despair. But he thinks, well, I've slain the Vorkwal. He's seen it die, so Nala should be safe now. But he still can't quite. He's got this nagging uncertainty at the back of his mind. And he goes back down the steps and into the city. And it's very early morning, so no one is really up and about yet. So it's quite surprised to see Nala come walking towards him. Well, not towards him, but past him.
Pale and ghostly, she glided by him with a swift and swaying movement, almost serpentine. Yeah, Smith describes it as her being in an almost somnambulistic state. So she's being drawn, right? Yeah.
And he follows her, and she threads the exotic maze of Lospar with the fleet and sinuous glide of a homing serpent. Nala entered the sacred pyramid. Lunithi, less swift than the maiden, had fallen behind, and he knew not where she had gone in the myriad vaults and interior chambers. But a strange and fearsome intuition drew his steps without delay to the platform of the summit. And there we get the final scene.
Yeah. Well, I just want to draw your attention to basically a terrifying concept there, a homing serpent.
Yes.
Right in, chaps, unleash the homing serpents.
I tell you what, compared to pigeon, they make lousy messengers.
Yeah, exactly.
We released the homing serpent 6 months ago, and they haven't got back to base yet. I mean, the pigeons are there next day, right?
Yeah. The homing serpents still slithering about somewhere. Yeah.
I suppose the upside is no one is going to make a pie out of a serpent. You know, speckled Jim.
Yes.
There's a prize for any listener who can spot that reference. That should be a pretty easy one.
Yeah, it's quite an easy one. Yeah. You shot my speckled Jim.
So poor old Nala is now standing in the basin of evil soil above the withered remains of the Vorkwal, and she's undergoing a monstrous and diabolic transformation. Her frail slight body had assumed a long and dragon-like form, and the tender skin was marked off in incipient scales that darkened momentarily with a mottling of baleful hues. Her head was no longer recognizable as such, and the human lineaments were flaring into a weird semicircle of pointed leaf buds. So she is now becoming the plant, or plant-like, certainly.
Well, this is what the mineral chap didn't explain, wasn't it? You know,
he didn't ask him, did he? And to be fair,
no, he didn't.
To be fair, he did say, if you've got any other questions,
yeah,
because that's like the wishes thing, isn't it? Well, you can have a wish,
yeah,
but oh right, well, what if? But what are the conditions? And
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
So that's that very typical Smithian cruel, ironic twist in the end, isn't it? Where you win, but then you actually lose.
Yeah. Well, it's not that whole thing as well. Don't make a deal before you read the small print. It's that age-old thing,
More and more, the monstrosity took on the similitude of the Vorqual, and Lunathai, crushed by the ancient awe and dark, terrible faith of his ancestors, could feel no longer any doubt of its true identity. Soon there was no trace of Nala in the thing before him, which began to sway with a dreamy python-like rhythm, and to utter a deep and measured sibilation to which the plants on the lower tiers responded. He knew then that the Vorqual would return to claim its sacrifice and preside forever above the city Lospar and the world Lo-Fi. So there's no getting rid of the Vorqual. And we can only speculate on what happens to Lunithi, on his fate, but I can't imagine it's a pleasant one.
No, I can't imagine so, no. But this made me think of, you've like invasive plant species and weeds and things like that. You know how hard it is to actually get rid of them. Yeah. You rip them up, they'll come back. You burn them away, they'll come back.
Oh, our neighbour has got bamboo in her garden, like as a decorative thing. Yeah. And it comes under the fence, and where we've got like a pavois, it's pushing all the bricks up in one corner. And you sort of say to her, well, let's not get into my neighbourhood disputes. But it is that incredible power of the plant world again. We know what trees can do to houses and all that sort of thing. Right?
Yeah.
They're not fast moving. They're not intentionally doing anything, but the power within that growth will go through concrete and brick and stone and everything.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think something we both mentioned as well was Smith uses plants quite a lot, doesn't he? We've got the vampire plants coming up, the flower women.
Yep.
With some of the Venus stories, we've had similar sort of carnivorous or certainly predatory plants.
Oh yeah, well, one of the ones with Captain Douchebag had the carnivorous plants because one of his red shirts got munched, didn't it? And yeah. And
I'm pretty sure, was it the Maze of Maldweeb? We get the dangerous garden where the thief has to make his way through again, very similar idea, the vampiric plants. So it's something Smith did come back to. And I just think it's interesting that this was his focus as opposed to things with too many legs and eyes and tentacles, which he does use occasionally, of course. But the plant world seems to be his mainstay.
Yeah. Well, like Hope Hodgson, his thing was mushrooms, wasn't it?
Yeah.
His thing was fungi and shrooms. He did some brilliantly unsettling stuff with mushrooms. So yeah, I guess whatever you're into, whatever floats your boat, so to speak,
Yeah, I wonder where that comes from. I mean, you can obviously think, I know Tolkien was not keen on spiders. I mean, he grew up, or certainly his early life, in South Africa. So you can imagine, right, or prefer not to imagine.
Yeah.
So you can quite easily see where Ungoliant and Shelob and the Spiders from Mirkwood, of course. Oh, there's a band name, the Spiders from
I thought you were going to say the Spiders from Mars. I
almost did.
I was about to burst into Ziggy Stardust.
Ziggy played guitar.
Yeah. And the Spiders from Mars. Yeah.
Bowie could have played that role, couldn't he? Was it Thranduil, wasn't it? The elf lord. He could have pulled that off, couldn't he?
Indeed. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. He'd probably have recreated the bulge from Labyrinth,
My word.
There you go.
Suggestion indeed.
Yeah.
And I think, I was just thinking, given Lovecraft's well-documented sort of fear and loathing of the sea and even seafood, you wonder if there's some association there.
Yeah, you got to wonder, like Hodgson, whether he read about the cordyceps, like controlling ants to make them climb up branches and bite down and then become a fungal growth, because the voice in the night is very similar to that concept. People being taken over by these fungal parasites almost.
Yeah, I wonder if Lovecraft had a childhood bad encounter with a lobster or something, or
nipped by a lobster when he went to the beach. Yeah.
Let's face it, they are funny-looking things, aren't they? I mean,
I love them. I love them. I love crustaceans and cephalopods and stuff like that.
Oh, you had spiders as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Indeed. Pet crab. Yeah. Oh.
Oh, I once had some crabs, but we won't talk about them.
I've always been that guy that has the weird pets. I've always been that one. I've had all kinds of things over the years: scorpions, stick insects of various breeds. The big Australian ones, the Maclay Spectre, the big buggers.
Oh, they're a fair size, then, aren't they?
Yeah, they're awesome creatures. Yeah.
No, I don't mind those things, but I prefer to see them in a zoo, to be honest.
Right.
Is it a vivarium? Yeah. Is that the word?
In a viv. Yeah, in a viv. Yeah. To be fair, one night I didn't close the tank. I had 14 of them, these big buggers, right? And I didn't close the lid on the viv properly after I'd replaced their heating materials. And I went to bed and I woke up in the morning and they were all over the ceiling.
Oh, see, that's nightmare fuel for me. That is. Oh.
They all do this little rhythmic dance that sort of mimics the movement of trees. They sway like a tree under the act of the wind.
Oh, wow.
And they were all doing that on the ceiling. I thought somebody had slipped a tab of acid in my tea or something.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, yeah. Wow. I never knew that.
Indeed.
Wow, there you go. See, we are educational,
yes,
as well as bringing you filth and bad puns. We do, Okay, so let's take a look at Dawnwood Spire and Lonely Hill, then, shall we? Because, as usual,
there's got to be a good return address. There's got to be.
So yeah, there's a few mentions throughout the letters between Lovecraft and Smith, mostly of the kind of, oh, I've sent Demon of the Flower off, and that's pretty much it. But we get one or two other pieces. So this is from Smith to Lovecraft, 12th of November 1931, and the return address reads, "From the ghoul-haunted vaults of Tremoth, after the breaking of the iron chain and lock. You may have seen the Demon of the Flower by now. Bates is still holding it, along with the hunters from beyond and the maker of gargoyles. It will be hard luck if he doesn't take at least one of the lot, after all his hesitation and delay. I shall send him the nameless offspring too, though I imagine its commercial chances will be somewhat less than nil." So, again, he knows what's up, right? He knows that all these stories are not, in inverted commas, commercial. And a little later on in the same letter, he does return to this topic. Lovecraft, as we know, did a lot of revision work in order to bring some money in. And Smith notes this, "I'm glad you have some revisory work that is more to your taste than the overhauling of amateur efforts. I've done enough of the latter myself to know what it's like. As to remunerative fiction, I really think there is room for considerable literary art, even within the limitations imposed by editors, notwithstanding the lack of it in the usual magazine story. Of course, the problem is to develop adequate atmosphere in connection with fairly rapid action. It can be done, and infinite skill can be lavished on it. Of course, the average writer wouldn't take the trouble, even if he had the capacity. I think you are mistaken about yourself in this regard, and believe that you could readily write stuff that would be both excellent and saleable." So they're both facing the same issue, aren't they, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's that age-old struggle between art and money, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. But the interesting thing as well is what is regarded as commercial, isn't it? Because, as we know, probably, well, let's be generous and say 70% of the other Weird Tale authors have disappeared into obscurity, and Lovecraft, Smith, Howard, etc., just keep on getting more and more popular. So it's benefit of hindsight, I suppose, or perhaps.
Yeah, well, it's like we recently did a round table for the Innsmouth Book Club, which we'll be able to find next week. I believe it'll be going out next week, and we were discussing then that thing about, and we were talking about modern publishing and how basically a lot of them go for, Harry Potter's popular. Let's have lots of stories about wizards.
Yeah.
But is anybody going to remember any of them?
Exactly. Yeah.
And
it's the same in films as everything else. As it's much easier to get a remake done of the Spider-Man origin story than it is even to get a new Spider-Man story done, because that was successful before, so we'll do that again. You know, music and everything is the same, isn't it? Really.
It's happening now as well in mainstream video games as well. The trend of remakes has infected that now.
Oh, really?
It's like, lots of remakes of games. And a lot of these games haven't actually been out that long, and they're being remade already. It's just like, why? Why bother?
Music, as we mentioned when we were chatting the other day, this is why there's so many tribute bands, right? Because it's easier in some ways, or you're certainly going to, from a pecuniary perspective, be more successful doing a Queen tribute than you are from doing your own rock songs, even if they're in that same genre. Yeah. No one's going to want to listen to you particularly. Yeah. But the minute you say, "Oh, there's a Queen tribute playing in town," then it's sold out.
Yeah, it's bonkers. It really is. It's quite, yeah. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's very strange. I'm not sure why.
And I was just going to add to that, really, this is the price that people like Lovecraft and Smith, etc., pay for being ahead of the curve, right? Because in terms of what they're doing and the ideas they're coming up with, they're way advanced beyond the usual, say, typical ghost story or typical weird story, perhaps. That they're just there's no concept that this stuff could be popular at all. It's going to take 50 years, which I suppose, Wright and Co were running commercial magazines. They're not there to, they're not curators of literary history, are they, or anything like that? They can't see into the future.
Yeah, but again, you see the same with music, that a lot of the bands that originated styles and sounds and things like that are not as remembered as the people who then, a few years later, took what they'd done and built on it and refined it to a degree.
Well, we mentioned that earlier. Suicide is a band that's very typical of that.
Absolutely.
And again, you speak to most people and say, "Have you heard of the band Suicide?" And 9 out of 10 people I speak to, even musicians, won't have heard of them. Yet so influential.
Yeah. They were one of the big influences on the Sisters of Mercy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And there's a reply from Lovecraft. This is on the 16th of January, 1932. So this is a little later on. And the return address is Concave Cliffs by the Tarn of Kiragoth, hour of the reddening of the dark waters.
Nice.
Lovecraft has this humorless thing attached to him, but, this is great. Right certainly gives me a violent cervical agony. Which to me implies, well, because what he read was, so he thought the Demon of the Flower was too ornate. So I can imagine Lovecraft reading that and slapping his head back and going, "Oh, God."
Yeah. I know.
Getting a twinge in his neck. That's great.
Yeah.
So he thought Demon of the Flower was too ornate. Well, if you send it again after about a month, he'll probably take it. That's the kind of capricious guy he is. The Empire of the Necromancers sounds highly alluring, and I am eager to see it. So, it's... I suppose they didn't have any other choice, did they? It's Weird Tales of Standing Stories. There's a couple of others, and that's it. There's no...
Pretty much.
No prospects of self-publishing or anything like that.
No, it's interesting. And it's funny you end on that, because I've got this little, a tiny little bit here. I'm going from Eccentric Impractical Devils, the letters of August Derleth and Clark Ashton Smith. It's a letter dated January the 9th, 1932, from Clark Ashton Smith to August Derleth. Wright says that the vaults of Yo Vombis will appear in the May Weird Tales. Concern him. He sent back the Demon of the Flower with some quibbling comments about the diction, which he seems to think might prove a trifle too recherche for the semi-illiterates among his readers. I've just fired it back to him with 7 or 8 minor alterations.
Wow. Oh, my word. So that's exactly what we said at the start, is Wright seems to constantly underestimate the intelligence of his readers.
Indeed, yeah. He has a very dim view of his readership by all accounts from what we've seen.
Yeah. I suppose, I mean, looking back now, well, no, not even looking back that far, even now, wouldn't you agree that what we write and weird fiction, pulp fiction in general, it's not real literature, is it?
No.
It's not proper writing, is it, really? It's just talking about,
Yeah.
It's that sort of attitude, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which must have been even more so back then, because the pulps were like the comics of the day, right? You pick it up, you read it, you sling it away.
Yeah, you get that. You get that at conventions. You'll get those people, usually in the Arthur C. Clarke T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. They come wandering in and they take one look at my stall there with my lurid covers of tentacles and ghouls and all this kind of stuff, right? And they do that look. You know exactly what I mean by that look, that sort of thing, you know. Funnily enough, when my novella Miracle Growth was shortlisted for the August Derleth Award, funnily enough, last year for the British Fantasy Society, and one of the other people who were shortlisted read everything that had been in and reviewed them, and he really enjoyed it. He loved it, but his review kind of summed it up, because he says that it is a refreshing change because the current buzzword is elevated horror. So it's basically a literary spin on horror. So it's all this kind of stuff. And he was like, and this is not elevated horror. This is pulp in the best possible way. And I was over the moon, because I've always said I'm pulp and proud, right?
That's what
I want to do, you know. So I was delighted by that. But that is how it is. It's now you've got this. It's not literary enough. Oh, you know.
Yeah. So there's our story for today. We hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. All that's left is to thank our patrons and our supporters. Speaking of which, we have a new patron who signed up, Niels Hedgelin. Thank you very much for joining, Niels. Much appreciated. And Niels has sent us an email because it does so happen that he lives in California, not far from Auburn. So we're going to read his email out here, and I think you'll find it interesting as well. We're going to put the link up to his blog in the notes below. So he begins, "Howl from the vaults of Yovombis," a very good start.
Nice.
Or at least nearby. "I don't know how I haven't heard of your podcast until just recently. I really enjoyed your Yovombis episode, an excellent in-depth podcast in the vein of Double Shadow." Double Shadow, of course, was a Smith podcast that was running a few years back and sadly stopped, which is one reason we started doing this one, right?
Indeed, yeah.
And not only in-depth CAS-ness, but other geeky goodness, like an impressive Doctor Who producer reference. Well, we have our Doctor Who expert on that.
That'd be me. Yeah, that'd have been Philip Hinchcliffe, probably, yeah, from what I remember. Yeah.
And Niels continues, "You mentioned there hadn't been any TV or movie adaptations of the story, but did you know there was an excellent comic adaptation by Richard Corbin? He also did Return of the Sorcerer and Seed from the Sepulchre. You can find them in the Den Saga entries here, and there's a link that we'll also share." I didn't know about those, Neil, so thanks.
No, I didn't.
And Richard Corbin is one of my favourite comic artists as well. I love his work. He did House on the Borderland, I think.
Yes,
he did a version of that,
yeah,
which was excellent.
I've got that somewhere.
Yes, me too. Yeah, definitely gonna check that out.
Yeah, Niels continues, "I live in Sacramento, California, about 40 miles from Auburn, and I've visited it a number of times to see the different Smithian spots up there. Since I have pretty easy access to the town and surrounding areas, I've started a monthly zine about various Smith subjects that might not be as easily covered by others. As an example, I think I've found the actual physical mailbox that Smith received his letters through during the 1910s to 1920s, which may have included letters from Barlow, Loveman, Lovecraft, and Smith's mentor, George Sterling. That's very cool, considering how much we delve into the letters. And we own collections of the letters with Lovecraft, Derleth, and Loveman.
Yeah.
And Barlow and people like that as well. So, yeah, that's really interesting.
And considering as well that Auburn has only very fairly recently made any acknowledgement of Smith, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got the Robert E. Howard house. I mean, it's all still there. You can go and visit the house itself and all the rest of it. But Smith was largely forgotten.
Yeah, it's interesting because a writer colleague of ours, Josiah Witkowski, who's been in various anthologies that I put together, he does Lovecraftian stuff and stuff like that. He lives just outside of Auburn, up in the mountains. Yeah, and he messaged me from Auburn saying, "I'm outside the library."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, get a picture. But by the time he got it, he'd gone. And it was like, oh, no.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And Niels concludes by saying, also, I interviewed the maker of the Smith documentary, and the fourth and final part of that interview will be in my next month's issue. I've also put together a Smith tour of Auburn that I gave on his birthday of this year. It stops at the 4 commemorations to Smith in Auburn and a number of other less significant spots around town. If you're interested, you can find my zine at my very minimal blog. The zine is part of an amateur press association that covers the pulp genres of sword and sorcery, cosmic horror, and space opera. And again, of course, we'll add that link in below. So that's really excellent. Thanks, Niels, for writing in with that.
That's brilliant.
And we're talking to Niels now. We'll maybe look at getting him on the show in future to do a bonus episode on Auburn, perhaps, or something like that.
That'd be cool. Yeah. I want to know if he's been to the Rock. You know, the Rock's Smith's favourite rock. Apparently, it's in the park.
Yes. Well, isn't that a bucket list thing to get over there and see these places? I mean, I have been to Providence about 15 years ago.
No, you see, I haven't. Yeah,
there wasn't much there then. There was no Lovecraft tours or anything like that. But we went to the John Hay Library and one or two other places. Couldn't get to the cemetery.
Yeah.
The Howard Days I'd love to get to in Texas one year.
Nice.
And obviously there's Auburn as well. That's like sort of East Coast, Middle and West Coast, isn't it?
Yeah, I want to do the old Fritz Leiber Our Lady of Darkness tour. When we covered that for the IBC, if you remember, in San Francisco, somebody had put together a tour of all the locations that are used in the story, you know, with the Corona Heights and all that. So yeah, I want to do that as well. That's another one that's on my list.
Yeah, it seems like I think now in Providence, I'm sure they do Lovecraft tours now. I think it's reached that sort of popularity now. So
yeah, they do. Yeah.
Oh,
a friend of mine moved out there from Birmingham, so imagine that was a bit of a culture shock. All right,
for both sides.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. So yes, thank you, Niels. And if you'd like to join Niels in supporting the show, then there's details at our Patreon page, of course. When you sign up as a member, you get bonus content not only to Strange Shadows, but also the Innsmouth Book Club. You get a quarterly copy of Innsmouth News, which the spring issue has just come out recently. That's got a feature on Margaret Brundage in there and various other things. You get free entry to our events, such as the Innsmouth Literary Festival. And you also get other little bonuses, like we've just put out a free ebook copy of the latest Innsmouth Gold anthology, When Shadows Creep. So lots of reasons to sign up, and of course it does help us to keep the show going as well. We also like to see all your comments and suggestions. Please do keep those coming in. You can put them on the Patreon page, our YouTube channel, or on our Facebook group, and you can always drop us a line at innsmouthbookclub@outlook.com. So I think that's it for this week. What are we going to be reading next time, sir?
Next time we're going to be looking at the story The Nameless Offspring,
which I believe starts with a quote from the Necronomicon.
It does indeed. Yeah. It's what we talk about bad puns, right? In the Chaosium cycle books, the Clarkish Ton cycle, Robert M. Price calls it parts of the Clark Ashton Smithos.
Oh,
there you go.
There you go. Well, we started with some bad puns, so it seems only right that we end on one.
Yeah.
I certainly can't top that.
That's a groaner, isn't it? That one.
That is. So I'm going to concede defeat and say it's goodbye from me, Rob White.
It's goodbye from me, Tim Mendes.